Hello, my name is Sean Briscoe, and this is the Cliff Notes version of a longer presentation answering the question, what is policy debate? So this presentation is primarily geared at those individuals who are brand new to the world of judging or brand new to the world of judging policy debate, and it is a rather quick synopsis of what policy debate is all about. The three defining features of policy debate are that first, you have two-person teams. So you have an affirmative team with two people and a negative team with two people. And as a judge, you're going to evaluate whether or not the affirmative team or the negative team won the debate. The second defining feature is that in policy debate, the students debate one topic for an entire year. Now, the topics that they have been given are very broad topics, so there's a lot of diversity within the topic, a lot of issues and a lot of proposals that the affirmative teams can come up with to defend the resolution and show that it is in fact a good idea. Third, for the most part, the students are focusing on the issues of the social sciences, anything related to economics, government, political science, international relations. Those issues get talked about a lot in policy debate rounds. It doesn't mean that we won't have discussions coming in from the world of science and other areas, but primarily the students are focusing on the disciplines which would be encompassed by the social sciences. One other thing that you should be aware of, which is true in almost every debate format, is that the students are tasked with arguing in favor of both sides of the debate topic. So from any given round or in any given tournament, they're going to progress from the affirmative side of the resolution to the negative side, and then back to the affirmative, and then back to the negative. That's important for you to understand because the students are not necessarily presenting their own personal beliefs. They're not coming from their own personal convictions when they're presenting their ideas. They have been tasked to present to a meaningful defense of whichever side they have been assigned. And ultimately, you are evaluating which of the two teams has done a better job of presenting their case relative to their opponents. So you're not evaluating whether or not you agree with them or whether or not they've convinced you to change your mind. You're evaluating their ability to see their side of the debate topic and present reasonable, rational arguments better than their opponents have done. Policy debate is also evidence-based, meaning that we are heavily reliant upon quotations during the first two speeches of the debate round. During the first affirmative constructive and the first negative constructive, you will find that those speakers rely almost exclusively on lengthy quotations from authors, and that gives them the ability to create a solid foundation from which the debate can progress. Now, in each subsequent speech, they should be reading fewer and fewer quotations and injecting more and more of their own personal analysis, their own logic, their own comparative analysis of their evidence versus their opponent's evidence. And always keep in mind, too, that evidence does not necessarily mean quotation, although that's what a lot of people seem to think that it means. There are other types of evidence that you can use. You can use analogies to prove your case. You can even use personal examples, although most critics don't find that very persuasive, but there are other types of evidence that can be used in a debate. But ultimately, at the end of the round, you are answering the question, or actually the debaters should be answering the question, does the course of action proposed by the affirmative team lead to more good or more bad? If their plan leads to more good than bad, then you would vote for the affirmative. But if we believe that the plan would lead to more bad than good, then you as the judge would vote for the negative. And because the policy debate topics are almost exclusively using the U.S. federal government as the agent of action, the final question then is, should the government implement the plan? Should they pass this proposal and make it law? And we would know if they should do that based on whether or not it would lead to more good than bad or more bad than good. Okay, there are three basic guidelines which almost every debate will follow. The first is that the affirmative has the burden to support the resolution. So whatever the national debate topic is for that year, the affirmative has to come up with a plan or a proposal that falls within the boundaries established by that resolution. The negative, on the other hand, is tasked with refuting the affirmative team, and they can do that in any number of ways, whether that be to show that the plan actually makes the problem worse, to show that although the plan might have positive ends or beneficial results in one area, there are unintended consequences which outweigh the the problems that the affirmative wants to solve, that we would lose. They might present an argument that says that we would lose the opportunity to pass an even better solution that the affirmative hadn't considered. There are many different ways that they can refute the affirmative, but that's their burden. And then third, there are a set number of speeches that take place in a particular order, and they have predetermined time limits. And you can see what they are. I'm not going to read them to you, but we pretty much alternate affirmative, negative, except for in the middle of the round, the negative team has 2 speeches back to back, the second negative constructive, or 2 in C. We have a cross-examination period, and then the first negative speaker gives his or her rebuttal for 5 minutes. And then the affirmative will conclude the debate with a second affirmative rebuttal. And then each team also has some prep time. That's sort of like calling a timeout, but unlike in sports, they can't call a timeout at any point in the round that they wish. They usually take their time immediately before they're about to speak, and they can use as much of their prep time as they want to. So if I was on the negative, for example, I might choose to take 30 seconds of prep time before the first negative constructive, and then take 4 minutes before the second negative constructive. The only limit is that different tournaments will say that you have X number of minutes to use for prep time. So for example, in the St. Louis Urban Debate League, we give each team 5 minutes of prep time. So the affirmative has 5 minutes and the negative has 5 minutes. Ultimately though, the debate comes down to 2 basic questions. Is the affirmative plan necessary? And do the advantages of the plan outweigh the disadvantages, or do the benefits outweigh the costs? Each of those 2 big questions has 2 sub-questions. For the first, is the plan necessary? The first sub-question is there a problem? Can we identify something bad happening in the world right now that we ought to fix? And second, can I identify what's causing the problem? That second piece is important because you can't really come up with a good solution if you don't know what's causing the problem in the first place. And then you would identify the plan. After you've figured out, or after the affirmative has figured out what the problem is and what's causing it, then they would propose a plan that they would hope that you would choose to implement. And then we move to the second question of, do the benefits of the plan outweigh the costs? A part of that is going to be looking at whether or not the plan will actually reduce the harm that they cited earlier in the round. But then we might also look at additional consequences in the debate. Even though we might be dealing with an environmental-based resolution, there might be economic consequences that come into play. There might be impacts on the United States' ability to be a leader in the world, or a more effective leader in the world, and whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing. And then there might also be opportunity costs, that if we choose to implement this plan, we lose the opportunity to do something else, which is actually better. So when you look at all of those sub-questions, the final question would be answered on whether or not the advantages of the plan outweigh its disadvantages. If they do, you vote affirmative. If they don't, you vote negative. And hopefully the debaters will analyze those questions for you so that you don't have to do the work for them. Because we like to practice non-intervention in debates, so the debaters should actually be answering those questions for you.